Hi and welcome back. Today we're designing a case where we're adding a new wash impression. This tool was introduced in the 2022 dental system, so you'll need a version 2022 or newer to follow along. A quick note, again, I'm not officially trained or endorsed by 3Shape. Like you, I'm an end user sharing the methods I found helpful with the tools that they have provided. Alright, today, like I said, we're going to be scanning in a new wash impression. So we have the original design here. And we can see I have in brackets here because I used the little reference tool in my work order. So this was the original try-in for our patient here, Denture Stewart. And we sent this patient home to wear these try-ins and to see if he likes them or not. And this patient actually tried to eat some tomatoes and said that his dentures were sliding around. He couldn't really chew on the tomato skins very well. And so we did a wash impression. And the wash impression was scanned on a trios, and it was scanned as a copy denture. So if I have a look at this case here, you can see there's a wash impression on the upper and a wash impression on the lower. We cut this lower a little bit shorter also. The extensions just weren't playing very nice when he was going into functional motions. So this case here, we have done a wash impression on both the upper and the lower. And to use this tool that was added in 2022 software, one, you obviously have to be on the 2022 version or newer of 3Shape, and also it's assuming that you're changing both arches or whatever data you are designing. So if you've only done one arch, it's assuming you have a wash impression for one arch. If you've done two arches, it's assuming you have a wash impression on both. If you don't have a wash impression on both, it's going to apply the intaglio surface of whatever you have scanned in for your data. And so I have two copy dentures that I'm going to be using. You could also have two models. You could have two impression scans. All you need is a case that is ready to design. So if I right click on this and I go modify, you can see here, so this is set to Dental Designer 2023. Even though I have 2024 on my system, I'm copying a case that was designed in 2023. So I want to make sure that this is able to read that. So this one also has to be set to 2023. I have the reference right here where I put new wash, and then I've set this up just so I can design a denture. So it's set to just a basic workflow PMMA, base with design teeth, PMMA artificial tooth, and I have this set to digital impression because again this was scanned on a trios as copy denture impressions, and I just brought them into this case. So what I'm left with is my original design here and my new case here, which I have not started the design, but it actually needs to have files in it. So you need to act as though you're starting a new design from scratch with files in it, with your new models, your new wash impressions, your new copy dentures, whatever you're using as your new tissue surface. When I right click that, because I have not started the design, if I go to copy, there's a new button here that says copy and reuse try and design. When I click that, and I search Denture, all of the cases for that patient are going to come up, and I only have one so far, so I'm going to click on this and I'm going to click OK. It's going to pop up with a little message here. The design has been copied. Right click and you can modify if you need to modify. We already set up our work order exactly how we need to do it, so we don't need to modify anything. And now if I click on this case, we actually have a little notification in the comments. This is where we know that this has been applied to this case. So it says reused CAD design from the order Stewart Denture Try 1 1023, which is this case here. So if we don't know if it's applied, just have a look at the comments here. If we don't know if we've selected the right one, because maybe we have multiple cases for this patient, just have a look here. And now I'm going to right click and click design, and it's going to go through some steps to align our new data. The first thing it's going to ask us is, do you want to keep the design? So we're going to click yes, because that's the whole point of doing this, is we can keep the same design but add a new tissue fitting surface. So I'm going to click yes. And you can see here when the software opens, I'm just going to turn the texture off here. The very first thing that it's asking us to do is to align our upper to our previous design. So here's our previous design here. It was a full monoblock design, and here's our new wash impression. So we want to align this to this, okay? So I'm going to do a 3-point alignment. And as soon as I click that, it just kind of jumps it out of the way so I can see what I'm working with here. And I'm just going to select 3 points on this case, and I like to kind of triangulate them. So something in the posterior on both, something in the anterior on both, and then something on the other side. And then I'm going to hit preview before I hit next. By hitting preview, it's going to show you the alignment. And now I can have a look at this alignment, and I can also do a 2D cross section. So this isn't bad. This is actually looking pretty decent. So I'm going to do a 2D cross section here and just have a look. So the purple is my previous design, and the black is my new wash impression. So you can see just how much new data we captured. So what I'm looking for is that it's lining up on the top here. Now keep in mind, we did send the patient home with this, so we polished this a little bit and we cleaned it up a little bit. So it's not going to be perfect on the facial side because we did clean it up just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and keep this alignment. So then I'm going to go next, and it's going to ask us to align the lower trine. And it kind of auto-aligned it. What I'm going to do is click 3-point alignment and just do it myself. Because we do have the tooth surfaces, I'm going to use that for this one and just show you kind of the difference. Now we have two options here. We have co-directional and opposite directional. And I'm using co-directional because these are both the same type of surfaces. One of them is not inverted. So if I had poured models and scanned a model instead, I would want to use opposite directional. Now this is honestly the best case scenario. Having a full copy denture scan gives me a lot more surfaces to align. If you can imagine, if I had a model, this case originally was actually an immediate denture that was done a little while ago, so the tissue has changed quite a bit. So if I had just poured this model, or I had just scanned this as an impression only, I wouldn't have all of this data to align it to. So it really is optimal if you can scan a copy denture of the complete wash impression, because it gives you a lot more surface area to align everything to. So I'm just going to go ahead and find some tooth marks here. And you can see here a lot of this was trimmed, and this was just, he was having some speech issues. It was a little bit bulky here. This, again, this was an immediate denture design, so sometimes you do have to bulk it up a little bit just to get this to fit over the crest of the ridge. So I'm going to go more with an actual tooth marking point and hit preview. And you can see that that's not terrible. So keep in mind, we did trim. You can see here we have a lot of purple here because we did trim this denture quite a bit. And the facials of the teeth here, we polished them a little bit just so that he wasn't going home with a super rough denture to try. So you do have to understand what you're aligning and what your data looks like. So here's that purple area where we cut this down. And here you can see the reason why we had it so thick. We took quite a bit of bone off when we did that immediate denture. So what I'm looking for alignment is mainly this tooth surface here. And this looks really decent for the anterior. And then as I go along, I'm just going to have a look in the posterior. And yeah, this is looking decent. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this alignment. Once these are aligned, we can look at the alignment. So what this is doing is it's actually aligning our old design to our new bite. So we can see here, these have been moved into our new bite. So this is how our new case was scanned, right? And these purple ones are our old design. So we can see our purple scans are coming into our new bite. This is important to understand because when we do a wash impression, the bite can change. It very often does change, and your practitioners should be letting you know that this is however they've scanned the data, or if they're sending you data, they should be sending you a new bite or something to articulate it with, because when you take a wash impression, if we have a look at these two cases, you can see how much material has been added. So it's very, very difficult to keep that exact same bite. Now, this case specifically was scanned in the mouth, this bite. So the practitioner took these wash impressions in their try-in, scanned those as a copy denture, put them back in the patient's mouth, and then we could see here from this scan here, scanned that in the mouth while the patient was wearing the wash impressions. And so now what we have is not only new wash impressions, we have the new bite also. So it's really important to understand what we're looking at when we get to the tooth setup. So all I'm going to do now on the left side is just go down all of these options, and we're going to redo our model design. But our actual tooth setup and denture design will all still be there. We just have to go through these steps here. So you can see when we get to the trim step, our spline is not really connected at all, our old spline. And that's because our previous design was not in this same XYZ position as this case is. So we have moved our previous design in the space of 3Shape. So there is this button here that says snap to surface, and I could click that, but this has moved actually quite a bit. It came forward quite a bit. I'm also going to click this button here to invert this selection, because I want it to be saving this side. So I'm still going to come in and adjust this a little bit. Also keep in mind that this previous design, again, was an immediate denture. So I'm going to use the fast edit line, and I'm just going to come in and make sure I'm capturing all of this nice roll, and I can switch the direction in a second here. I'll click this button again and just swap the direction back. It's happier now. And just come back across the back. Just make sure we're keeping everything from our new impression. This is not determining the denture base, as we know from the previous design video that I made. This is just determining our model. So I like to keep a lot of information when I'm making my model, and then when I'm actually designing my base. I'm going to go up and over this little area because I feel like it's not going to like that data very much. And we'll go with something like that. So we have the same with the lower. Remember I said on this lower, we had shortened it quite a bit so he could chew his tomatoes a little bit better. You can see our old design, we did have quite a big, nice extension. It just wasn't working for this patient. So I'm not even going to use the snap to design. I'm going to right click and delete this spline, and I'm just going to draw a new one. It's not liking some data somewhere, so I'm going to right click and do fast edit line. And my hunch is usually in the retromolar pad, so I'll cut them short and then I'll come back and just make sure we keep everything. Just trying to get this to be a little less glitchy. Maybe over here. And I'm actually going to keep a little bit more of this, just so when I'm designing my denture, we have some options here to look at the thickness. Okay, and now the previous design things that we had done to our previous design are gonna be applied here. So if I look here, I actually have quite a bit of actions that I did to my previous model. I need to make sure I'm undoing all 69 of those. So I'm gonna click undo, and now I have my data here again. And I'm gonna do the same for the lower. Actually, before I do that, I'm just gonna clean up this model just a little bit. It's pretty decent. It's just a couple areas here. I'm probably going to block out this socket a little bit anyways, but we'll clean it up. Same with this one here. And then I don't like this. I'm just going to move that back a bit on my land area. Okay, let's go to the lower. Remember, we're preparing our new data. So we are now working on these new models. So we want to make sure that they're cleaned up nicely. Everything's going to be looking nice. This is hopefully the last impression we have to take on this patient. So we still want to take our time, clean up our data. We're not rushing through this step. All of the rest of the design will be completed for us, but this step we do want to take our time. So I'm just going to undo those actions again. And then we're going to go next. Now the rest of our design here should be based on how we previously set up our case. So this is how we had set our occlusal plane previously. These are our characteristic points from before, and you can see they're way off the model because we are using a different data set. Now you could go in and change all these, but our tooth setup has already been completed, so it's not really going to change the tooth setup. So I'm just going to click next. And then here you can see again our spline has to be edited because this is based off of a previous design. So I could click this snap to surface, and then I can right click and fast edit, and I can just get some more extensions on this. It's no longer an immediate. We can make this a little bit fuller based on that roll of the impression that we got. I don't really go up and over the frenums. If you want to see how I design a denture from start to finish, I do have another video on my channel and I will link it in the description below. Let's go next. And with this lower one, because it's changed quite a bit like before, I'm just going to delete this spline and just start over. So right click, delete spline, grab my little pencil over here and just go around and redo this case. Now originally I set the block out to none, and I am still going to leave it at none. And we're going to go with this. I am going to manually just block out a couple of these sockets. So if I go to the next step, to the wax trimming step, I'm just going to block out those areas. I don't want pressure in those areas necessarily. So I'm going to come here and just block this out a little bit. Now I'm locked in. I can't block beyond 0.4 millimeters. So I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger just so I can fill this up. And I'm going to turn my wax pot all the way on so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to use my smooth tool, just kind of blend this down a little bit. And I'm going to do the same with these sockets here in the front. I don't really want my denture base to be pushing into these areas, especially if I'm just going to be doing a try-in here. I want this to be nice and comfortable. Okay, something like that. Same on the lower, I want this set to none, and I might block out just a little bit here and maybe where this area is here. A lot of this tissue is going to change. We're probably going to do a reline in a couple of months anyways, but we don't want this to be poking and forcing the tissue to heal in weird ways. So I'm just going to fill in a couple of these little spots here. This is not where we get our main retention from anyway, so this shouldn't affect the fit necessarily. We just want this to be a little bit more comfortable. Now I'm just going to have a look at the underside of the denture once I've actually designed it to see if I need to adjust it a little bit more, but we'll go with that. So I'm in the tooth setup now, and we can see that the teeth are in the same position as our previous design. Now, just for complete clarity on exactly what 3Shape is doing with our data, I'm going to actually load in our current wash impressions in the bite that I had scanned them in and align them to everything here. So to do that, I want to align them as one piece because I really want to evaluate the bite of this case that I have on my screen and the bite of my new wash impressions. So if I go here and I'm going to load those two cases and I'm going to save them together. So I'm just going to find where my previous cases were. Here in my new wash, so this is the case that I'm in right now, I'm going to go to my scans and I'll start with the lower, and I want my original raw data here. So this is my wash impression of the lower. I'm going to click open, And it won't be aligned because remember in the beginning we moved some things around. And then I'm also going to load my original upper. And this is just going to give us a better understanding as to what is happening to our case setup. So what I want to do is I want to keep these together as one solid piece and move them as a unit so I can see how everything is aligned with these stuck together in the bite that the practitioner scanned them in. So I'm actually going to go to the Save tab here, and what I want to do, I'll just click out of that. I want to click on the upper, hold Control, click on the lower, and I want to click Save Model. I'm just going to save this to my desktop, and I'm going to call it Denture New Bite. Wow, cannot type. Save. And I'm just going to just delete these ones so I don't have a bunch of extra scans in here. And I'm going to load that one scan that I just saved. So I'm going to click load. I'm going to go to my desktop, and there should be something on here called Denture New Bite, and it's going to load it as one solid piece. So now they are stuck together in the bite that they were in when they were scanned in the patient's mouth, and this is going to give us some data to work with. So I want to align these to the upper jaw, so I'm going to go to Align and go here and just move this out of the way for a minute. Turn it over. So why I'm doing this is I want to make sure that what I have aligned on my screen is actually matching my new bite. Double checking exactly how 3Shape is interpreting this data, just making sure I have a full understanding of what bite we're basing this off of, what part of the design we're basing this off of. So I'm going to use the points here, do a 3-point alignment, and this should align pretty nicely because it's the same data. So I'm going to click Align and have a look at what we're working with. So let's just check that this aligned nicely. And it did. It's on the upper. It's very nicely aligned. So that's good. We can close out of these. Okay. So this is my two models, and let's just make sure here. So my two models are really nicely aligned with my new bite, so that confirms exactly what I had said in the beginning, that we are aligning it to our new bite. And our setup then, when we look at our teeth, we can see the upper teeth should be in the same position that they were before. And if I look here, the upper teeth are, so the yellow line here, this beigey line, is showing me where my upper teeth are, and they should be in the same position. Now my lower teeth have actually moved just a little bit. And what this is doing is kind of like when we do the copy reuse CAD, your upper teeth should always be in the exact same position, and your lower teeth are going to be in the same position that they were set to the upper. So you can imagine your upper and your lower teeth are kind of stuck together, and your lower jaw is the jaw that's moving. So that's why we have a little bit of discrepancy here, because we can see from our previous setup that the lower jaw probably moved just a little bit, and that is where our new bite is coming into play. So when we're setting up our information here, we have to understand that we are now using a new bite. So if the practitioner comes and asks us, I want to lower the incisal length, or I want to change the overjet, we really have to be clear in our communication. Is this based off of the case before you did a wash impression or after you did a wash impression? Because like I said before, if we have a look at this information here and we turn on our purple scans, the tissue side has changed quite a bit, and this could have opened the bite, this could have changed the lower jaw position, this could be drastically different. Now this case is honestly pretty bang on to where the original bite was, so it's very, very close to where everything was before, but you can see by changing and adding this much impression material, we really could be affecting the bite. So when they're asking you to make changes, you have to have full clarity. Are these changes with a wash impression or before a wash impression, so we really understand what we're doing together. It's also really important that we check the articulator. So I want to turn on the articulator just to double check if I had opened or closed the pin in the previous design. If I had opened or closed the pin, it is applying that to my new bite. So if we had a bite registration in our new bite that was holding the bite a little bit open, whatever the pin is opened or closed here, it's actually applying it to that design. So you want to reset it to 0 and then make any changes that you need from that fresh starting point. So I did not open or close the bite in the previous design, so we're just going to close this and leave it as is. Now I'm not going to make any changes to this design. I wanted it exactly the same, so we're just going to leave it the same. Our occlusal scheme in the posterior should be the same, because remember, the lower are coming in how we set them in relationship to the upper, and the upper are going to be in the same spot. So they didn't want any changes. They're happy with it exactly as it was, so I'm going to leave this for now. But if you wanted to make changes, you could go in and change things, change the overjet, whatever you need to do. When we get to the wax up should be pretty much the same, but if you had moved your teeth or changed the occlusal scheme quite a bit, you might notice that some of your old wax up is going to be in a weird spot. So if you want to, you could undo all. On this case, all I'm really going to do is just smooth some of this edge a little bit, kind of blend it in, because all of this is new information here. This wasn't really part of our old design. So I'm just going to come in here, smooth this all. And then I'm just going to double check the inside if there's anything else I want to clean. There's some sharp spots here that I might clean up so I don't print or mill those into my design. And now that I do have that extra scan, I can just see kind of where our wax up is in comparison to the old one, and I can see here in the palette. Now this one looks really thick, and that's because we added quite a bit of material when we did that wash impression. So if I put the purple one on here, you can see the difference. So most of it is because we added all that material, but the thickness of the denture is still the same that it was before. So I'm not going to make too many changes. They were happy with everything, so we'll just go next. So in this design, the previous designer did not cut in any of the contacts or sculpt the anatomy on the upper or the lower. Typically when I do a design, I will cut in the contacts, and you'll see a little area here to undo. This is really important. If you are scanning a new wash impression or a new bite, you should always be undoing any of your previous actions in this sculpt anatomy step, because sometimes it does not apply that occlusal cut to your new tooth setup. So you want to always make sure that you're coming here, clicking undo all, then coming back to your joystick and running through any of these things that you normally run through. So if that means that you're just cutting in your centric bite, or if you're also coming into your articulator and running any of your excursions, you should be really doing that too. Now, in this specific design, my articulator is not being very happy, and because this is just a demo, I'm going to leave it as is. But what you would want to do is redo any of those steps that have anything to do with your actual occlusion. You just want to make sure that they're being applied to the new location that these teeth are set in. And same with this one. If I wanted to change any of the design, I would probably just come in and smooth this out a little bit. They really don't want any changes to this case. They just wanted the new wash impression. They wanted the wax up to be the same. Now, we did notice that it was fairly thick here, and when we had our case in, if I put this one on, we did trim away quite a bit of this, so I want to just make sure that this is not too bulky right behind the teeth here. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be because our model is a little bit smaller than it was before, but I just don't want any extra bulk there, so I'd probably smooth there a little bit, just blend in these areas, and then I would just double check the underside because these are some fresh extractions, and I did already block some stuff out, but I want to make sure that it's not too sharp anywhere. So anything that might be pokey or sharp, maybe blend in this area a little bit better. Just keeping in mind that you might have to do some edits because you do have a new fitting surface that you're working with. So maybe we go something like that. Again, this is just a demo case just to show you guys how to do a new wash impression. This case was actually already completed and inserted in the patient's mouth, so we don't have to go crazy today. Okay, so we've gotten to the end of our case, and now we have our same denture setup, our same denture design with our new models and our new wash impressions, and we're ready to print these cases or mill them for finish. And now we have our two cases here, so we have our try-in-one, we have our new wash, and remember our new wash is going to tell us in the comment section exactly where we pulled this information from, and we can keep these two files for as long as we need. Let me know in the comments down below what you'd like to see next, and I look forward to making some more videos.